In this video, we're going to take a look at keywording and metadata in Lightroom. Now, this may not be the most enjoyable or creative part of photography, but it becomes more and more invaluable as your image library grows. If we spend a little time adding keywords and making use of metadata, not only can we find our images quicker, we can also make life easier when uploading to photography platforms like Picfair. So let's get cracking. I've got a folder of images here. I'll drag them all into the library module and the import dialog here will pop up automatically. Now it's worth applying a couple of keywords when you import your photos. So we can go to the keywords field over here. Let's perhaps type in fairground. Let's type in maybe night as well. And that just gets us cracking with our keywords. So it's always worthwhile doing this as you import your files. We can also apply different metadata settings during import. So for example, if we wanted to add copyright data or build contact information into our files, then we can use the metadata presets here. So we can make a new metadata preset, then we can just work through the fields here. Let's give it a name. Let's call it copyright JP, and then we can go through these fields and add different information. Let's just set a quick copyright preset here. We can change the copyright status to copyrighted, add some rights usage terms, and perhaps add a URL to our website or other contact information. And we can go on and work through these other fields as well if we like, and then hit create. And then when we're ready, we can import our set of photos. And once imported into the library module here, we can continue managing our metadata or adding keywords if we like. So you can see we have the metadata panel to the right over here. And let's just minimize this panel on the left here and maybe bring our images slightly larger on screen. So you can see we can continue adjusting the metadata. We can add titles, captions, we can change the copyright status down here if we like. And we have all the info that was recorded when we took the shot. Now we can also go to our keyword settings here. So you can see we have that same keyword panel where we can continue adding other keywords to our images. So for example, we might want to add perhaps long exposure to this image here. And then if we move on to another image in the set, let's perhaps go for this one here. And if we want to go back to that keyword panel, we don't need to go over here and click. We can hit Command or Control and K, and that automatically makes the keyword panel active, and we can continue adding keywords. Let's perhaps add another keyword. Let's add neon to this particular image. And then if we want to move forwards to the next image, we can hold Command or Control and click the right arrow key, and that shifts me forward to the next image, but also keeps that keyword panel active so I can continue adding other keywords if I like. So again, let's go for neon for this one. Hold Command or Control and press the right arrow to move to the next image, and we can add another keyword to this image if we like. Now the keywording process can be a bit of a chore, but there are a few useful tricks here for speeding up the process. If we go to our metadata panel up here, you can see we can set a keyword shortcut. So you can see I've got my keyword shortcut here set to long exposure. And then if we go through and find other images that we want to add that keyword to quickly, so I can just click on that one there, hold shift and click through to select all of those long exposure images there. I can use the keyboard shortcut shift plus K to quickly assign that keyword to those set of photos. So we can go through, find more of our long exposure images here. And again, we can hold shift and K to assign that keyword to those photos. Now another handy little tool for speeding up the keywording process is the spray paint can. So let's say we want to add another keyword here. Let's perhaps add in ride. Now I can grab the spray paint can from the bottom of the Lightroom interface down here, and next to this we can choose a field. So let's set this to keywords. You can see we can also choose metadata down here if we like, but we'll choose keywords, and then I can hold shift to sample a keyword from one image. So let's sample that ride keyword from this image, and I can just spray over other images here to add that same keyword. And you can see, let's just put our paint can back and highlight another image. You can see now that ride keyword has been added to all those images that I sprayed over with the spray can. Now you might have noticed alongside the keywording panel here, we also have the keyword suggestions and keyword sets here. So we can choose a keyword set. Let's perhaps go for outdoor photography, and you can see we can quickly add these tags to our images. So I know this was taken in the fall, so I'll add fall to these images. In fact, I'll select all of them and add that fall keyword. Now, as well as clicking on the keyword set options here, we can also hold Alt, and you can see how each of these suggestions is given a number. So if we want to add fall to all of our photos here, I can hit Alt+1 to add that keyword to the entire set. So that's another useful way to speed things up by holding Alt and tapping the number keys 1 to 9 to add these different keywords. Now it's worth noting that all this keyword and metadata is saved within the Lightroom catalog, which is effectively a database for your photos. But the information isn't necessarily saved in individual images. If you'd like to do that, then you need to make sure it's set up properly. So one option we have, if we highlight this frame here, we can go to our metadata tab here and we can choose to save metadata to file, or we can use that keyboard shortcut Command or Control and S. And if, like here, the image is a proprietary RAW file, then the data will be saved in a little XMP file alongside the RAW file. If it's a DNG or a JPEG or a TIFF or a PNG or a PSD, then the data will be saved within the file. Now, if you'd rather set this feature up automatically so that that data is saved in individual files automatically, you can go to your catalog settings, and in the metadata tab here, you can include develop settings in metadata and automatically write changes into XMP. So that can be useful if you're working in other programs, perhaps if you want to open your images in Adobe Bridge, and also when you're uploading to photography platforms. So now that we've added those keywords and adjusted the metadata, how do we go about finding the images that we're after? Now, if we hit the / key on our keyboard, you can see this toggles on the library filter at the top of the library module here. So we want to make sure the library filter is on, and then we can go to our attribute or metadata tabs. Let's look at attribute first. So we can see here we can choose to filter our images by either a star rating or a color or a flag. So that's very useful if you go through images and add your star rating. So let's say we add a 2-star rating to a few of these photos here, and then we can go and filter all of the images with that 2-star rating to find our favorites. We can also go into the metadata tab here, and you can see this gives us different fields that we can search through our images. So we can go to these little drop downs here and perhaps choose to search by keyword. So let's say we want to search by that fairground keyword. Let's say we want to go into this second field here. Perhaps we want to find all of the images from that set that were taken with a long exposure. So we can go to our shutter speed settings here, and you can see this gives me a list of all the different shutter speeds from that set of photos. Let's say I want to find all the images that were taken with a 2-second exposure or more. So I can highlight 2 seconds here, and that only gives me the ones that were taken with a 2-second exposure. If I want to include the other ones that were taken with a longer exposure, I can hold Shift and click to highlight all of those different fields. So that gives me all my long exposure fairground photos really quickly and easily. And of course we can go on and choose other parameters here. We can choose all the ones taken with the wide angle lens here if we like, and perhaps go on and set the ones that would have a 2-star rating to bring us to our favorite shots. So there we have it. That's a few tips and tricks for working with keywords and metadata in your Lightroom catalog.